Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. Today, I have Raul and Ruben with me. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you guys are like still enjoying newlywed bliss. How has the first year of marriage gone?
It's been great. I mean, not much of a difference from our previous 5 years.
And I think that's what's been great. One, that's why I wanted to get married. I was like, I don't want anything to change. I mean, when I proposed, I was thinking, if I can do this forever, that'll be dope.
So I like your guys' story because I think it's a very unique story in like how you came together, how you guys met. So Raul, I met you in like 2013, so like 6 years ago. Yep. And at the point that we met, you were at a very different place in life and in acceptance, I think, of who you were at that point. Or maybe you didn't even know.
Translation, Tanisha was one of the first people I came out to. Translation for your viewers. I was straight when you, or I thought I was.
Right. And so I remember we were in this group called Momentum. It's like a leadership / personal development course. And it really changes you in like amazing and positive ways. And I remember like one of the first things that you were sharing was you were talking about like some girl that you maybe had a crush on or something. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, cool.
You're like, okay, sure.
I'm going to take a sip of wine.
Sips wine. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know how long after that. I don't remember. But then you started dating Ruben. And then you guys have been together now for like the last 5 years. Like I said, married for 9 months. Yeah. So like, explain to me how this all came to be and how you became the person you are today. And when I say that, I mean a person that's like fully accepted who they are and is proud of that and is enriching other people to do the same.
I met Ruben about 3 months after I met you. So yeah, everything comes full circle. Yeah, so I met Tanisha, and it only took her a couple of months, her and a couple of friends, to get me to come out. They were very supportive in that process, and then they had me declare Ruben before I even met Ruben. Just like put it out there in the universe that I wanted to meet someone like Ruben. I literally described him to Tanisha and a couple of other folks, and then 3 months later, poof. So in many ways, Tanisha's a magician.
Poof. Right. So how did you describe this person that you wanted to meet? Like, what were the qualities that he needed to have, or like what would make you happy?
Well, the first thing was I wanted to date my friend. I wanted to date my best friend. So I wanted to meet someone who I could call my best friend at the end of the day. And I have this joke amongst my other friends that like one of my dreams is to like live in a sitcom with all my friends, right? And I kind of lived that with Ruben.
Which sitcom are you guys living on?
Which one?
It's not Friends because they only had...
We're like a more diverse cast of friends.
Okay, because I was like, that cast on Friends, I don't recognize any of my friends.
I wanted someone that really I could be myself with, someone who accepted me, someone who listened. And Ruben does all of those things really really well. He's really funny. He makes me laugh. And so when I declared Ruben before I met him, I basically declared my best friend that I can fall in love with.
Did you think you were straight, or did you know like you just weren't ready?
It's interesting. The first person to ask me if I was gay and was just willing to like address the elephant in the room raised the question in a way that really empowered me to make my own decision. He said, have you ever thought about it? Like, have you ever thought about your sexuality? Have you ever given yourself the freedom to ask, am I gay, am I straight? Mm-hmm. And the truth was I hadn't. You know, I grew up in East Harlem in a very Spanish household, very religious household. And while I knew I was loved, I never thought about the fact that one can explore their own sexuality. So once that question was put out there and asked, I really started thinking about it myself. And that's when I said, I'm not sure, but I'm going to explore my sexuality and give myself the freedom. And it didn't take much time for me to realize what the answer was. Maybe a week. I'm being generous. Maybe a week.
So then in comes Ruben, and you're relatively young, Raul.
I was 20.
You were 20. You couldn't even have a drink yet.
Well, I was.
I am not 20.
And how old are you now, or were you at the time?
Really?
Okay, so you're several years older.
Yes,
we'll say
just several.
You had a little bit more life experience. Now in comes Raul, who's sort of like very fresh in terms of, one, you're just young. So like there's just, and you are very mature spirit and a mature soul. Mm-hmm. But, you've only had 20 years of life experience. And there's a lot of things that I think change between the time you're like 20 and 27 in particular, right? So like, how was that for you, dealing with somebody who was, one, really new to themselves in a way, and then also just young?
If I'm being honest, at first it was uncomfortable. But I remember when he and I just first started talking and talking about like finding someone that's a friend. One of the things that kept coming up for us was just as friends, where we were just talking, that we wanted to grant each other a space to be, whoever that was, and be fully accepting of that. And at that time, I was coming out of a long-term relationship. So I had like all this baggage with me and all this upset and all this. And I remember just sharing with him about everything that was going on and my hurt and my disappointments and my fears. And he was just like, all right. Well,
and at that point, it was just as friends.
Yeah, it was just as friends, just talking. And then at some point, we started dating, and I was just like resistant to it. I was like, listen, our age difference is significant. I just came out of this long-term relationship. I'm not looking for something now because, Candy, I just don't want to hurt you. I don't want to, like, have you be that person that's like me right after a relationship.
Right.
And he was like, okay, fine. I just want to grant you a space to, like, we're just going to be with each other. And as cheesy as this sounds, there was one day I came in and he was like, I want to play this song for you. The training that we went through with Momentum, they play songs for you sort of that remind you of who you are. And I came in one day and it was a beautiful day outside, and I opened the window and it was warm but not too hot, and the breeze is hitting me, and he was like, I'm going to play this song and I just want you to listen to it. And it was No Day But Today by Indina Menzel, the soundstage version, which is like a live version. He just blasted it. And I remember just sitting there, just taking in that song, No Day But Today, and thinking, what am I being so resistant to that has nothing to do with today? And I finally said, you know what? Like, as cheesy as it is, no day, but I'm just going to, from this day forward, I'm just going to choose today with him. Every single day, I'm just going to choose today with him. And I'm not going to have whatever was there in the past interfere with what can possibly be with him. And whether it was the age thing, whether it was my relationship, I was like, I'm going to let all that go. And if it comes up, when it comes up, I'm going to authentically share it. But it's not going to be a roadblock.
Yep.
And that's sort of how that transition went. It went from being really uncomfortable to this moment between he and I, to me saying, all right, I'm choosing today. And it's kind of been that way ever since. Like
every day.
Yeah, just choosing today. And with the evidence and understanding that every day has been pretty dope. So when I proposed, I was like, yeah, I want to choose this forever.
Isn't it funny that our fears are never actually based on today?
Yeah.
Like when we're thinking about, like, I don't want this to happen, I don't want that to happen, we're thinking about, they're all things that are in the future or have happened in the past, but they're not actually today.
Yeah.
And so we don't know if any of these things are going to happen, yet we're making decisions for them happening when they haven't happened yet.
Yep.
So it's like, I'm fearing that you're younger than me. I'm fearing that I just got out of a relationship. When in actuality, you didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had no idea what that looked like with him.
Like, I had like no idea whatsoever, and I was molding how I interacted with him based on that. I was saying, oh, I'm going to have to treat you this way because you're younger than me, or we're going to have this dynamic because I just came out of this relationship.
Right.
And it just had no basis whatsoever with who I wanted to be with him. And I was just like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to choose to be goofy and be my silly self, and my goofiness is going to meet with his maturity, his mature soul. And we
because Raul is like a very old soul.
A very old soul.
Speaking of being goofy, a couple of hours after I played the song for him, he came to me with a note that said, "Will you be my boyfriend? Yes or no?" And I had to, and we were in bed, and I had to like check off yes or no. And it was,
no, you wrote maybe.
Yes.
Raul.
Oh yes, I did.
You didn't even. You wrote in. I'm just gonna write in my vote. My vote is maybe.
Yeah, we were being silly, and also we moved in with each other pretty much after the first day. I would go home every day. I would go home, and I would lay in bed, and then he would Skype call me, and at like 11:30, I was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm about to go to bed," and he was like, "You should come here." So I would go there, and then the next morning when I would try to take my bag, he would say, "Oh, just leave it here." And within a week, probably half of my belongings were already there. So that's pretty much how I moved in.
You're like, why is my dog here?
Don't even worry about it.
I'm a fan of that though. Like I'm a fan of like when you know, like go full force, and then you'll find out if it's not meant to be. Like I like that. Like I like a good quick move in. Like now I know all your home habits. I know if you throw your socks all over the place. I know if you get toothpaste all over the mirror. Like and I can nip these things in the bud right away. So you know, like don't do that.
You're just describing Ruben really well.
Don't do that in my house. Wipe the mirror off when you get toothpaste all over it. Do not do that.
Yeah.
How did your family take that? I've now let you all know I'm gay. Cool. But now I'm in a relationship and we're moving in together. So it's all very quick.
Like you said, everything went so quickly. So of course it was really nerve-wracking. And what I left out earlier was that when I came out to you and a couple of other folks, I didn't have the courage to actually say it. So I emailed everyone, right? So what I did was I then forwarded that email to my family.
Did you leave the forward in the subject?
Yes, I was like, FYSA, see below, right?
I'd have been pissed, like I wasn't even on the original email.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really funny because my mom was the first person to see the email, and she called me, and I was really nervous, obviously, when I pressed send on that email. And this was before Gmail had the opportunity, like, gave you the opportunity to unsend within 30 seconds, right?
Wait, you could do that?
Yeah. You can.
That would have saved me a lot of things.
So once I pressed send, it was, it was done. And I was really nervous. And within a minute, I received, a call from my mom. And all I heard was her yelling. And she was so excited. And I was like, okay. And she's like, by the way, I knew, right? And that was my mom's reaction. And now, came the time to tell my grandmother, who doesn't operate email, so I had to tell her real quick in person.
I couldn't just forward her the email.
Right? She doesn't have a Gmail account or any sort of email, so I had to tell her in person. And I come home and I tell her, I have something to tell you, and she gets really nervous. I tell her, come to the room, and then she comes to the room, and we sit on my bed, and I just start crying hysterically, and she starts crying hysterically.
But she didn't know what she was crying about yet?
She just knew he was crying.
She was just crying because I was crying.
Oh my gosh.
She was expecting the worst. And I finally told her, I'm gay. And she was like, okay, but what do you need to tell me? And
I'm gay.
And she was like, oh, okay. And she just hugged me. And of course, that made me start crying more. And then afterwards, she said, I thought you were sick or something. She thought she was expecting the worst. And it was really funny because I had a similar reaction from my best friend. I called my best friend. I said, I need to meet you. Come to my neighborhood. We'll meet in Central Park. And, she came and we sat on a park bench, and she was expecting the worst. And I told her, and she said, okay, but what else do you need to say? I said, that is it.
That's the story.
I was like, that's the news. And she said, oh, I was expecting the worst. I thought you were either...
I thought you were dying.
She's like, I thought you were either one, going to get back with your ex, or two, you had cancer. So yeah, but pretty much everyone had that reaction, and I was really fortunate to have that.
Yeah. But again, what we were saying about fear earlier, you had that fear, about something that you didn't even know. Like you've never done this before. So you truly didn't know how your family would react. But there was just this fear of like, they're going to like, I mean, what was your fear?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of my fears came from, reacting to my past and growing up, I grew up raised by a single mom, and I always, I had, obviously there was a lot to unpack in terms of my relationship with my father, and I always felt like I was a failure and that there was, I did something wrong in life to not have a father present.
Do you have any relationship with him?
I don't, no. I think a lot of the fear came from feeling as if I was a failure again, and will I disappoint my family, and will they leave? Which obviously wasn't the case. And I think Ruben and I, early on in our relationship, obviously we were both unpacking different things, but we learned together, what it cost us to react to our past. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons that we brought into our relationship. Really, every day is a new day, and not react to our past. And it really allows us to just, keep our relationship fresh. So like when you asked earlier, how has marriage changed you? The truth is it really hasn't, because every day we wake up and it's like a fresh new day. Yeah. And although we've been together for 6 years, it doesn't really feel that long, right? It always feels fresh.
Now, how do you do that, right? So I can tend to hold a grudge. So if me and Chris get in a fight today, we try not to go to bed angry. And then for the moment, I'm like, okay. And then we go to sleep. And then, like I might wake up in the morning and I'm like, yeah, that's my love. I love him. And then a couple hours might go by and I'm like, did he really act like that last night? I mean, like, what the, like, and it can resurface pretty easily. So how do you keep each day truly a new day where you're not focused on what happened yesterday or like pointing fingers about yesterday and not fearing tomorrow? Like, how do you actually do that?
I don't know. We rarely argue about serious things.
But he leaves his toothpaste on the mirror every day.
Well, it's interesting because when we got together, one of the first conversations we had, which was really important to us, was to speak about how we wanted to be loved. And for Ruben, he really wanted someone that always made him feel accepted and just had the space to be, right?
Yeah. I wanted someone that was a friend first. Yeah. And if you couldn't be my friend first, I just felt like we couldn't be in a relationship. Mm-hmm. If our relationship mattered more to you than I, as a human being, mattered to you, then it just didn't work. And I feel like that's been the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And same here. Like I wanted someone who was my friend, but I also really wanted someone that saw me for who I was and made me feel like that was okay. And I think if what I learned is if I wanted that, I had to be willing to accept Ruben with the toothpaste on the mirror.
Oh, so you just
even if he doesn't want to, he's like, I guess.
Yeah. Most of our arguments are about ridiculous things. So,
like who has better prices, Target or Marshalls?
Yeah.
Oh, Marshalls does.
Thank you.
Like I buy my shower curtains exclusively from Marshalls because they're usually $5.99.
And like we had
when you go to Target,
arguments about
it's
stuff like
$9.99.
that.
Yeah.
So we'll go off about stuff like that, and then we're like, okay, fine. I remember one argument we had that was like kind of serious. And what
was it about?
Just going to avoid what it was about. Okay. But what I remember is I did what you did. The next day I brought it up, and then the third day I brought it up. On the third day, he was like, I'm going to need you to grant me this space to be a human and make mistakes. And I was like, fuck, I can't be upset with you anymore.
Were you holding your grudge?
Yeah. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, he's right. I'm human, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I need to let him make mistakes. And that was his way of saying, well, he had apologized by then, and that was his way of saying, you know what, I apologized. We're not going to keep going into this. Like, what else am I going to say? You just need to let me have that space to make mistakes.
The grace to make a mistake and to be a human being.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because I feel like we'll give that to strangers sometimes more than we'll give it to the people that we're closest to. You know what I mean? Like if somebody on the street like cuts us off or just does something that pisses us off or that we find inconvenient, we're like, ugh, in the moment. Yeah. And we like let it go.
Yeah.
But if a person that we love does the same thing, we sort of hold them to this higher standard. We're like, well, you're supposed to know that I don't like that, and you're supposed to treat me better.
Yeah.
And like we hold
And
them to this like
never mess up
rigid
after
standard,
you.
and like why are you messing up? You know I don't like that.
Yeah.
You dated before.
Yeah.
How did you know Raul was the one?
It's weird to say that. Sort of implies like there was a moment, a day, where I was like, that's it. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the case. It was sort of every day. And I was like, okay. And every day that, like I said, when I proposed to him, what I sat with was every single day that we've been together, I want that to happen forever. So it wasn't a moment or a day. It was just all of it. And I felt like after 5 years, if this is who we are, I want to be committed to that. I want that to be it forever. So it wasn't like, he did this
grandiose thing.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was just, we're laying on the couch watching something, and I don't know. He starts massaging my feet. I'm just kidding. He would never touch my feet.
Wait, you would never massage his feet? Why?
So I accept all of Ruben except his feet.
Why?
I won't embarrass him like that. But what I will say is,
I have nice feet.
I took him for a pedicure once, and they charged us double.
You should still rub his feet.
I think I said too much.
No, Chris has very gangly, like I always say like Chris's toes are like they got into a disagreement. Like they were like a group, they were like a band, and then everybody got into a disagreement and decided to go their separate ways, but we're stuck on the same contract. Raul, for you hadn't really dated other people.
Ruben was my first boyfriend.
Yes. So how did you know that this was the one, and what made you comfortable to move forward despite not having experienced other people in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much took it day by day, but after about a year of taking it day by day, I realized, wow, I've had a really good year of days. And at that point, I just knew, that he was the one. I hadn't really had anything to compare it to because, like I said, he was my first boyfriend and my first, like, adult relationship.
Because he was an adult.
So by my 21st
I have
birthday
to poke fun at it
through, I knew that he was the one, and I just knew it felt good, and I felt like I was coming home to someone that I looked forward to coming home to every day, and that's really. I mean, there wasn't a specific moment when I said, "Oh, he's the one." But I pretty much took it day by day all the way up until the point where he proposed. And even that was like pretty, I don't want to say basic, but it was pretty chill. Like even the way he proposed to me was pretty chill.
That's not how I wanted it to be, but Raul being...
Is that how Raul wanted it to be?
He decided to propose to me on the night Scandal was on. And he had all these plans.
On a Thursday?
Yeah. So that's just, it was our anniversary. It was 4 years since we met, like, our first date.
I had reservations. I had photographers.
I knew he was.
Oh, you had the whole thing.
I knew he was
had
planning
the ring.
something. I knew he was planning something, but I just wanted to stay home and watch Scandal. So I called him and I told him, "Listen, it's not going to happen. Come home. Let's just order takeout and watch Scandal."
But did you know he had this planned?
I had no clue that was planned. I knew he was making plans for our anniversary.
Got it.
Our anniversary was falling on a Thursday for the first time, so we never had that conflict before.
Scandal has never really impeded our relationship until now.
So this was the first year where I had to pick between going out to see a Broadway show and a fancy dinner and Scandal, and I figured
it's handled.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I just needed to say that.
Let's have a fan. Let's come home, watch Scandal, order some good takeout, and make sure we just do that.
Yeah.
So he came home and he got in front of the couch and he got on his knee and he popped the question.
You had no idea what was going to happen.
I had no idea. No.
Had you guys talked about marriage prior to that point?
Yeah, we
did.
We definitely spoke about marriage. I knew it was like a plan. It was, it was going to happen. I just didn't know when.
We weren't in a rush because it really just felt like, oh, we're just going to do this. And I think we knew nothing was going to change. Like people were saying when we got engaged, it was like, so how is it different? And we're like, it's not. Like it's just not different at all.
I do hear a lot of couples say that, like, things were great. And these are people that have lived together, and they're like, but the first year of marriage is what they always say. The first year is rough. And I'm like, well, what's rough? Like, what changed? If you didn't have like a child, or you already living together, or there wasn't anything like new, like what was the thing? And I never quite grasp what the thing was. The only thing that I can think of is that maybe because there's now a new title on it, they start to act differently, or they feel like there's different expectations around, everything, and act out in that way.
That's the only thing I can summarize it as being, that people are taking on the title versus making the title their own. Like, even when we were planning our wedding, people were like, oh, your wedding's going to be like this. You're going to be miserable here. You're not going to eat anything. You're not going to be able to enjoy it. And we were like,
y'all ate, drank, and were married.
I know. We're like, are you kidding me? We're paying for this. Like,
I'm having a good time.
We're going to enjoy this. Yeah, and I remember our server at the wedding, she was like, I never saw a couple like eat, drink, and do everything you guys did.
Yeah,
like,
we're
not.
You guys had an amazing wedding.
Thank you.
It was like, because weddings aren't memorable because generally it's like the same thing that happens over and over again. Yeah. But I really feel like the reason your guys' wedding was different was you had fun, and that was like evident. Because I've been in 7 weddings, and I've seen brides where I'm just like, oh God, she's just having like the worst day ever. And I'm like, what is happening? But you two were just genuinely happy to like be there, be celebrating yourselves with like people you loved. And it was like really evident. And then you guys were having like an amazing time. I had an amazing time. Like, I was just like, this is my karaoke floor.
I saw the picture.
We have video.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it was
video here.
Right.
After that, I was like, should I do this at weddings? Like, should I be a wedding singer? I can't sing, by the way, but it was like,
oh my God, neither can I, but I have the heart of a singer.
Yeah. No, same. It's in me.
Yes.
I just don't, it's not here, but it's like
it's
in
here.
me. It's here. Yeah.
Completely.
We had someone think you were the live singer that was.
Oh my God. Do they want to book me, or?
Well, I'll send them your information.
Yeah, I'm totally available. I'm available for weddings, all that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what would you guys say is like the best thing about being married now?
For me, it's like, I've been saying, it's just like a continuum of what we've been from the beginning to now.
So why actually get married then? Like what did that mean or symbolize for you guys? If in fact it was just like, we just want to live the same life we've been living together, but like, why do it?
It was for a couple of reasons. One, it was the celebration / acknowledgement of all the people that contributed to who we are as men. I feel like we rarely get a chance to have all of those people in the room. I mean, we just don't have a chance to bring all those people together and just say thank you. And that was an opportunity to say that. Even though sort of our day-to-day didn't change, it was us saying, yes, we are committed. We're going to do this, and we're going to take this all the way. We're choosing this.
It was really moving our relationship from taking it day by day to transitioning into a relationship in which we thought about the future and planning the future and growing a family. So in many ways, it felt like an investment in each other. The aspect of marriage made us feel more comfortable in planning our future.
So speaking of, what's happening in the future?
The first thing we did was we brought in a lovely golden retriever.
He is so cute. I'm not even a dog person, but he is really cute.
Yeah, his name is Sunny.
Yeah.
We figured that would be like the first step into growing our family, and it's been great. And we've learned a lot about responsibility in terms of having another living thing, like another living thing in the home. And
I started with plants, and I have kept my plants alive, so I'm pretty proud of that.
We have plants too.
Okay. So you thought you'd just take the next step right to a dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
We decided to not yet.
We're living in today. Today there is a live dog. We're rolling with that.
There isn't a live plant, but there's a live dog.
We obviously love Sunny, and he's great, and we love coming home to him. But I think one of the biggest things we learned by having him in our home is that there's obviously a desire for both of us to continue growing our family.
So one thing, Ruben, that is interesting about you is that you interviewed Martin Sheen. This is a random fact, but now I'm just very curious. Like, how did you get to do that?
I'm an agent. So before I started working with the agency, I managed a single speaker, and I traveled around the world with her. And at one of these events, Martin Sheen was speaking. And rewind a few months before that event, my dad had passed away. And I grew up, lived in the same apartment with him my entire life up until he passed, and I probably had like 6 conversations with him. And when he passed, I remember thinking like, whoa, I can't talk to him anymore. I can't.
Now, why had you guys only had 6 conversations?
It was a Spanish household. He was very like a machismo kind of man. He was just like, you don't talk about your feelings. It's just not what we do. Like, we sit down, we watch TV, I go to work, and also my dad, when I was 8 years old, he lost both his legs in a car accident. So I imagine that impacted him in a way where he just felt like he wasn't as much of a man as he wanted to be.
Right.
So not only being this machismo man, but also being this machismo man who felt like he couldn't teach me how to ride a bike. He couldn't teach me how to play baseball. And I remember, like, while I was learning how to ride a bike and learning baseball, looking across the street and seeing him in the window watching me learn.
Wow.
From his wheelchair.
Which when you're a child, you don't think about that.
Yeah,
but as
not
an
at all.
adult, you're
I'm just
like,
la, 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 la,
wow,
la,
like that must have like hurt in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So growing up with him, we just never really talked. We sat down, we watched Married with Children and Night Court. That's how old I am.
Oh, I love Night Court.
So did I.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, what?
Well, I just side-eyed you for youngness. I was like, okay.
Right. So when my dad passed away, I was just like, I was upset with him because I was like, how come he didn't come talk to me? How come he didn't tell me about his life? Like, he's such an ass, like all this. And I had all this anger about it for a while. And I realized that wasn't helping me. It wasn't serving me. It just sucked walking around pissed off. And I sat down with my closest friend on the planet, who is the speaker, Liz. And I was like, Liz, I can't keep carrying this. I was like, there has to be something I learned from my father that has helped me in life. And she and I just started sitting there and unpacking it. And I thought about when he lost his legs when I was 8 years old. He went to work in a wheelchair for 16 years after that, for Con Edison. And I was like, how could I not learn responsibility? My dad showed up at every single one of my football games in his wheelchair. And if it was snowing outside, he drove his van up. He had a van that had hand controls. He drove it up to the field to watch us play football. And I was like, he like was just always there for us in ways that I can't even begin to describe because it just felt so natural. And I started sort of reinterpreting my life with my dad based on these things that I got to like revisit from this place of trying to see what worked about my relationship with him, even though his way of communicating love wasn't verbally. It was this whole other way.
He had a different love language.
Yeah. So I remember talking with Liz through this, and I started writing all of these lessons. I remember one when I came out to everyone in my family, and
how old were you?
I think I was 20. Mm-hmm. When I came out to everyone in my family, and I was this is gonna sound weird, but I was in California at the Emmys, random whatever, and my mom calls me and she's like, "I think it's time for your father to know."
Oh, so you hadn't told him. You told everybody but him. Okay.
And I was like, all right, tell him. And she tells him, he's pissed. He's just like, no, he can't have any of his friends here. Like, what? Like, he's just pissed off. And my mom was like, okay, it's fine. He can't have any of his friends here. But then none of your other kids can have any of their friends here either. And then she was like, if you say anything to hurt this child, I'm going to throw you out on the street in your wheelchair, and you can go fuck yourself, right? So,
yo, I love Mama.
she's the bomb. So, I come back, and time passed, and I remember this is the first time I'm bringing a friend over, right? And it's late at night.
This is my friend.
No, not even, right? It's late at night, and my parents' bedroom was like. You open the door.
Wait, was this a friend or friend? Friend. Okay.
So you open the door, and their bedroom is like right there. And my dad always sat against his bed with his back to the door, watching TV. Mm-hmm. And I open the door, and I plan this out. I'm like, listen, you're gonna run past the door, I'm going to go into the bedroom, just go straight to the back to my bedroom, and I'm going to say hi to my parents.
So this was a sneak-in. This was a sneak-in operation.
Completely.
Okay.
So that happens, and I go into the room, and my dad hears the footsteps going down the hallway because
that's something my dad would do. Like, I heard 2 sets of feet.
Yeah, and I'm in his room, and he hears footsteps, and he's like, "Who's that?" Right? And I was like, "A friend." We were kind of being an ass to him, also because I knew he said that, and he was like, ugh, pissed off. Right. Next morning comes, we're leaving. Have a plan. Like, listen. I'm going to go in the room. You're going to go wait by the door. And I go in the room. My dad did this thing every single day that I left. Every day, no matter what. If I was leaving like for the day, going somewhere, he would say, do you need anything? And give me $20.
Every day?
Every single day. And then...
Do you know what I would have... Like, $20, just here you go every day? Like, I would have been stacking.
Yeah. And then
I would have a house by now.
And then he would say, be careful, right? So this day I go into the room and I'm like, hey,
Which is, by the way, like, sorry to interrupt, but such a way of showing love when you really dissect why he did that and what that means. But go on.
Yeah. So this day I go into the room and he goes through the routine. Do you need anything? Be careful. And on this day he handed me $40. And I was like, yeah, right? So when I started speaking with Liz about like all of these things that I learned from my dad's life, I started unpacking what I call these lessons my father never taught me. These lessons that I learned from my dad by the way he lived. And now fast forward like probably 3 months, we're going to speak at an event. Well, she's going to speak at an event, and I see Martin Sheen sort of on the dais, and I'm like, Liz, it's President Bartlett. From the West Wing. Right.
Hello, Mr. President.
And I was like, he's like the best human being on the planet. You think we can get him to do a lesson, to share a lesson? And she's like, I don't know, I'll ask. So she speaks, and he's listening to her speak and falls in love with her. She's like by far one of the best speakers I've ever heard. I've heard her speak probably like 350 times. Cried every time, laughed every time, and felt like energized every time. She's freaking great. So she speaks. I'm waiting backstage, and the door opens, and I hear, Ruben. And I'm just like, President Bartlett, I think, is coming through the door. And in my head...
Out of my way, the president is here.
And what I told myself, like, I hear Martin Sheen's voice coming in, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to totally say that West Wing line, like I serve at the pleasure of the president. Right? And I was like, I'm totally going to do this. This is going to be so cool. Like, no one
like a good idea.
ever does this, right?
Oh, no one ever does this. Original.
Yeah. So he comes in, and I see him, and she's like smiling, like, and this guy jumps between Martin Sheen and I. And he goes, I serve at the pleasure of the president.
Oh!
And I
Bitch stole your look.
No, and I'm like, that sounds so ridiculous.
You saved Ruben. There would have been an interview.
I know. I was like, thank God for this guy. So anyway, like Martin Sheen and I get talking, Liz and I get talking. And then Liz is like, hey, Martin, would you mind doing this interview? Ruben and I are working on this thing. She just threw herself in there. Ruben and I are working on this thing. Like, would you mind doing this interview? And he's like, yeah, come to my house. And I was like, what?
Your house?
He's like, yeah, come to Malibu, come to my house. And like, you have dinner with Janet and his wife, and interview me. I would love to talk about my dad. I love the old man. Like, that's my pops. And I have 2 hours of interviewing with him. It's so moving. I don't know. It's just great.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in that process, though I love Martin Sheen, I'm really curious about how you feel about your dad now versus before when you hadn't unpacked everything.
It's like night and day. Like, seriously, when he was alive, growing up, my mom wasn't the happiest woman. Like, she was, you can just tell she was just like pissed off a lot. My brother, one of my brothers was sent, like he tried to commit suicide and was sent to a home, and all of it was sort of around my dad. And it's not that sort of have disconnected from that fact, but I also got to accept and see the other side of him. And so when I talk about like lessons my father never taught me, and I've actually been interviewing just my friends about it, the whole idea behind it is that I want people to give their father some grace, because we don't know the whole story. And to give them a second look. And most important, I think what mattered most for me was that who I was when he passed away, like I felt hopeless. Because my mom and my dad were sort of these two pillars in the world. And wherever I went on the planet, like they were home. So when he passed away, it felt like the world was off balance.
Where's home?
Yeah. Like I knew my mom was there, but it didn't feel like it was my home was on stable ground. So when he passed away, I felt like, whoa, what? It just threw me off. And accepting sort of all of him grounded me again in a different way. So it's night and day. I don't have upset about him like at all, because I feel like I finally got to see him as a human being, and not as my dad. It's kind of like what I want for people, like in my relationships. I want people to care for me as a human being more than for me.
Whatever label you have on you.
In a relationship, yeah.
Right.
And I got to do that with my father.
Wow. I think when you really think about it, like men, they're not really taught how to express emotion. Like it's just not a language that they necessarily grew up speaking.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they weren't showing love because of that. Like just because your father wasn't like, hey, I love you. Hey, just don't forget I love you. I love you. I love you.
Yeah.
Like his $20 and be careful every day was, I love you.
Yeah.
Be careful. I love you. Be careful.
Yeah.
Like that was his way of doing that. And like we have to really think about like how people show love and the fact that it can be different than the way in which we show it or we want to receive it. But it doesn't negate the fact that it is love and it is their way. And sometimes it might be the only way that they know how. We can't negate somebody showing their way of love just because it's not ours. So I'm glad that you came to that and you were able to see that and like you weren't holding on to like it not being your way. Yeah.
It didn't work for me. And I think that's what that process was about more than anything. Soon after he died, I realized I don't want to go through the world like this. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be upset at him. I don't want to carry this anger. I don't want to feel hopeless. And I was keenly aware that this does not work for me. So let me see if there's something else out there that does. And I found if I sort of revisited his life and started looking for places that empowered me in my relationship with him, or my experience of him with other people, then that would work for me. I could easily have held a grudge. You know, my brother went to Four Winds and he had to go to therapy and was locked away for however long he was. And my mom, you know, went through everything she went through. I could have held on to that, but it just didn't work for the life I wanted.
Wasn't serving you.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want that. So what do I want? I want to feel at peace in the world. Not sort of, not ignoring all that other shit, but accepting all of it. And I can't say, you know, he was only this, because he wasn't only that. He wasn't only the negative parts. He was also the guy who showed up at my football games. He was also the guy who went to work. He was also for 16 years in a wheelchair. I know people now who's fully capable who don't go to work at all. It's just like, what the... And he was also that person. So for me to pretend like both sides didn't exist just wasn't honest.
I love that you came to that. Yeah, I really love that. Do you think seeing your father in a different light has impacted maybe how you see Raul or your relationship, or, you know, maybe him not always loving you in the way that you want to be loved? Like, are you able to give more grace because of that situation?
100%. I'm able to give more grace in general, 100% because of that. because before that, I was right about who people were. I was like, oh, you're just this type of person.
You're 20, you don't know anything yet.
Yeah. I think we were both fortunate enough to have like the conversation about how our relationship with our parents has an impact on our relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And we took the time to really have that conversation with each other and with ourselves and figure out, okay, how does our relationship with our parents impact who we are with each other? And for sure, having that conversation really helped us being, successful in our relationship and feeling as if this was something we really wanted. When Ruben shared his story about his father and the lessons he learned from his father with me early on in our relationship, it really had me connect with the fact that, Ruben may show me how he loves me in many different ways. And there may be days where he's having a busy day at work or I'm having a busy day at work and we don't call each other for like the full day. And of course, the question like, why hasn't he called me pops up in my head. But
what are you doing?
But I quickly let go of that when I get home and like even after a long 12-hour day of work, he's in the kitchen cooking for me, right? So I completely get like, oh, that's how he's showing me he loves me today. Even though he didn't say, I love you or send me cute texts throughout the day. Yeah. Once I get home, I realize, oh, he does love me. He came home and he started cooking. I don't cook, so
you don't cook anything.
He cooks
I cook
twice a year.
Five
times a year.
5 times a year for Ruben.
Like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter.
No, not even those.
Birthday. Are you?
Yeah.
It's his. It's actually Ruben's birthday today. Are you cooking for his birthday?
I can't. We're here.
Good excuse.
We're here.
I really love your story and how you guys came together and how you sort of like bypassed fear and didn't let the things you were fearing about the future like impact the present day that you guys are living in. So I've always loved your story and I appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Something that he and I sort of are have always held at the fore of our relationship was that when it ends through death or whatever, it's going to hurt. So let's enjoy every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of like, we're in it. Let's be 100% in it because love hurts. I saw my mom laying in my dad's hospital bed in his last hours, holding his hand, crying. And I was like, yeah. It just hurts.
Enjoy every moment.
Yeah, and just accept that.
Being willing to accept that really does help in terms of building a relationship because I feel like a lot of times folks don't get into a relationship or pursue a relationship because they're afraid of being hurt. So if you just acknowledge like I'm going to be hurt one way or the other,
right?
It gives you so much more freedom to create the relationship that you want.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. What are you guys working on right now?
Part of the reason why we're here talking about our relationship and our marriage is that we want to push forward this narrative that, as Lin-Manuel Miranda said, love is love is love is love. And a big part of us getting even the opportunity to be married is because folks like HRC working and fighting.
What's HRC?
The Human Rights Campaign.
The Human Rights, like working and fighting and doing everything that they've been doing to push marriage equality across the country. And
4-year anniversary today. Also Ruben's birthday.
That was awesome. Waking up on my birthday and hearing on the news that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of marriage equality nationwide. And I was like, whoa, this is a cool birthday gift. So I think just thinking about what those folks are doing and supporting them however we can, because it's just a right that people should have.
It's silly that it was ever a thing.
It really is.
One thing that's really important for us, and part of the reason why we wanted to come here today is, in my former job, I was working at the White House for President Obama, and one of the things that I learned from him was how important it is to change hearts and minds. And how you do that is basically, who you're being, right? And how you're showing up in the world. And forget about focusing on changing someone's mind, but focus on what you can do and how you can show up. And I think what Ruben and I try to do every day is really be ourselves, but also try to project love and project the love that we have for each other with everyone else. And it was really important for us to come here today, really just to show folks that you can define your own relationship. You can be who you want to be in your relationship, whether it be marriage or, you know, just dating.
And you also define your own relationship. Like, no one else is in your relationship but you. Like, why let anyone else define your relationship? And I think that's been like key for he and I. It's just like, this is our relationship. It was our wedding. It, like, all of this is ours. Like, we're gonna make it what we want it to be.
We shared some of our story today, but we've been really fortunate to have a community around us that was really supportive, whether it be you know, our parents, our friends. I mean, even the President of the United States welcomed us into his office when I was there.
You guys have some pretty high up friends. So I was just hanging out with Obama and then Martin Sheen.
Not to name drop, but for us, it's more of, there may be someone out there who's, you know, alone in their bedroom right now and thinks that it doesn't get better, and, you know, may not be as fortunate as we are to have folks around them that are willing to support them. And for us, sharing our story, whether it be our parents or the President of the United States accepting us, we feel is necessary to have folks realize that it does get better, and that the folks in your life right now may not accept you, but there's certainly a world of folks out there that are willing to. After a while, it feels routine, but it's so important to really share these stories.
People all around the country are sort of growing up, realizing things about themselves and saying, whoa, can I share this with anyone? And I feel like I would be naive to say yes, like share it with wherever you are, because it may not be safe. But what I do know is that at a certain point, folks grow up. Hopefully, they can choose where they want to be around people that will accept them. And if they do that, chances are it will get better for them. They will have a community that supports them and loves them and allows them and grants them the space to be.
And I think it's also important to note that for those who may not identify as LGBTQ, it's also important to be an ally and really support those who do identify as that, because our story wouldn't be possible without those folks. Yeah. So, and we're obviously passionate about a few charities that we'll give you information about to share with your viewers and your listeners. But,
I would love that.
But it's really important to answer your question, what are we doing? We're working on lots of projects, but everything we do really is focused on that mission and that vision of like creating a world where everyone's accepted and for who they are, and really spreading the love that we have for each other with everyone else.
I feel like people can't meet the two of you and then not believe like you should just love who you are, because like then you create something like this. I really appreciate you guys. Like, you have an amazing story and you needed to be together. Like, there was no other way around it. You two just needed to find each other. You needed to be together. And I'm so glad that you did. And I'm so glad that you're sharing it with drlpodcast.com. So thank you so much. Can people reach out to you guys?
That's a good question. What's my Instagram?
What's my Instagram?
I think yours is Raul
DPS
93.
Okay.
And mine is Ruben G4.
Yeah.
That's on Instagram and Twitter.
And please reach out to me at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and let me know what you think of the show. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.